My name is Moses Johnson. I'm a retired firefighter from the San Antonio Fire Department. I'm also a veteran of the Vietnam War. In October of 1995, myself, Charles Wilson, and another friend, Carlos Jackson, decided we were going to attend the Million Man March. It was going to be a day of history, and we decided we were going to be a part of that history. And on going there, we had heard that there was going to be a bus, but we never got the information on the bus. So I told Charles, I said, why don't we just drive? I had a 1994 Dodge Caravan. I think I got it the year before. And so we loaded up in that van and we headed out. Along the way, we met a lot of people who were headed to the Million Man March. And as we talked to them, we saw that everybody had a different reason for why they were going. But the one thing we all had in common, we wanted to be a part of that historical day which was about to occur. And so as we talked to the people along the way, we had people who were, some people even told me that I didn't even have a home, but I found a way to get here with some friends. I don't even have a house to live. There's some of the veterans that I had met along the way. But we all decided we were going to be there. So we arrived in Maryland on I think it was like the 11th, because my granddaughter was born on the 12th in Virginia there. So I remember that day well too, because that was my youngest son's baby that was born that day. He was in the Navy there. And so I went down to visit them on that Saturday because the march was going to be that Monday. So we were there way ahead of time. And as we drove along the highways and byways, we met a lot of people who were going and we wanted to be with them. And so we talked to people. When we went to the march on that morning, we were supposed to be there as emergency personnel. We were supposed to be the first responders for any emergency that occurred. But once we got there, we found out that there were doctors and nurses. The nurses, I met a lot of them from Philadelphia because I was stationed in one of the buildings where they would take them to triage and everything. And so they told me their story and said, I wanted to be such a part of this. I know this is supposed to be the Million Man March, but it's a lot of women that want to be here to support the men, which is always the case of our black women. They're always ready to support their men with whatever the endeavors they're going to go against. So they were there for that reason. I was amazed at the amount of people. I was also weary of it, as people said, because there were so many people. We got off the bus early that morning before the sun up. It was still dusk dawn when we got off the buses. We got off the train, other people got off the buses. They were all parked in the same areas. And when you came out of that train station, all you saw was a sea of people. Sea of people. I mean, they were coming off the buses, coming off the trains, and they were headed for the march, to the mall, so where we were going to witness this great occasion. And so it took us about a good hour to get from where we started to where we had to be. And we were issued our assignments of where we were going to be. So I had envisioned myself going around all over the place, taking pictures of everything, so I could say, I'm going to put this in memory. I'm going to put this in history books. I wanted to do all those things. But it came to the point where you could hardly move in that crowd. And once you got set in place, you were in place. And it was hard to get out. And the only reason I was able to move someplace because I had on that red shirt jacket that said emergency services. So people would kind of move over the side to let me get through, but that was the only way. But the people were there, and everyone was so loving. I'd never seen such a loving crowd because, like Charles had said earlier, before we were paramedics in the San Antonio Fire Department. We had run into a lot of gang violence and stuff. People shot, cut, whatever. And when you get a lot of, it was always said you could hear it all on TV all along the way. There's going to be a lot of black people together, and there's going to be a lot of problems. There were no problems. No problems. Everyone was loving. I was amazed at the loving things that we got from people. I said, man, I told Charles, I said, man, this is something like I've never seen before. Like, talking about cheering up. I actually, that night afterwards, I cried because I had never seen something like that. So I just cried about it. I said, Lord, I thank you for having this opportunity to have been a part of this, because this is not something we see on a regular basis. And and having come up in the South, and I came from the deep South. I came from a place where they could call you what they wanted to call you. There was nothing you could do about it. And then to see our people coming together trying to make a change, which we're still working on to this day because the change has not come. It looks to me like we're going in a reverse because we're starting to get more violence from the other people instead of ourselves. Other people are going to be more violent against us than they were before. Even though they were mighty violent before, they're getting worse, especially the people who are supposed to serve and protect us. They're the worst of all. And there's no accountability to them, so they get away with it. And so on our way back, we talked about the Million Man March all the way back because like you didn't see it, you didn't hear anything else about it on the news. The day of, you heard it was on the news. After that day, you never heard another thing about it. If we didn't keep it in our memories, it would have faded away. But we decided that we were going to keep it up. As a matter of fact, they had talked about it at the march that we should do this on a regular basis more often so we can see what the progress. They had all kind of ideas. Let's start our own businesses. Let's open up our own groceries. Let's not have those food deserts. Let's invest our money in keeping our people so they won't have food deserts. And that sounded good. I said, ooh, this sounds like great. Well, after a couple of years, it all kind of died down because as it happens, for some reason the fire dies out because no one keeps putting wood on the fire. Right. If you don't keep stirring the fire, it's going to die. I don't care, what you do. Being a Boy Scouts and camping out, you got to stoke that fire every now and then. If you don't stoke it, it's going to die. And so after a couple of years, it all died down. It was a great idea, and it's something I look forward to doing because I believe in doing everything I can to uplift my people. And I don't believe in that. They say pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. Well, you got to have boots in order to pull yourself up. If you don't have boots, how are you going to pull yourself up on the bootstraps? So it's good for somebody else to reach back and to pull you along with them. Try to keep us all moving in the same direction. And of course, you're going to have dissension along the way, but don't let that stop you. You got to continue to strive. We've come a long way. I understand that, but it looks like we got such a long way to go. We've done all we can to try to be Americans. We fought in every war. We've been excellent in every war, but we still get that same thing, like we are second-class citizens. I don't care how well we do in anything else. They still don't want to treat us as we are equal to them. When I was looking this morning at Dr. Martin Luther King saying, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. And yet we still have not gotten to that point. That was a lie they wrote in the Constitution of the United States, and it still goes on to this day because we've never gotten to be that equal that we're supposed to be. But we can't give up. We got to keep on fighting. We got to keep on trying because eventually it's starting to look that way because we're starting to get more of the other people to work with us toward that goal. Before it was just us working against them. Now we have some of them working with us to try to get this change about, and it may happen. Now, we may not see it in our days because we are in our late years, but I'm praying to God that my grandchildren will see it, or my great-grandchildren, or whoever. Someone will see that America finally became the thing it said it wanted to be, a nation for all people, all for and by the people. That's my story.
Oh, the march had a big impact on me. In order to see 1 million plus men peacefully come together for good reasons and for a good cause, I just felt good. I mean, I was just almost giddy. I mean, it was just the best feeling I've ever had in my life, really, to have been there. And I'm just delighted and I feel blessed to having been. But I think I went with the expectation of it being just what it was. But when I saw black men acting in a way that we had been told we couldn't do, peacefully, using good sense, being brotherly with strangers, a strange black man acting brotherly to me, that was somewhat new to some of us. Guy from Idaho, the islands, California, Massachusetts. We were like brothers on that day, and I appreciate it, and I enjoyed it. I was just delighted, and I was acting the same way. And one other thing that really got my attention was when money was collected in big boxes of money. It was passed over one to the other, put money in it. Nobody was tampering with it or doing anything of the kind. I said, hey, we as black men we do know we are better than what they claim we are. So when I saw that, I said, hey, I'm in the right place, and I have no problem being a black man in America, because they are wrong and we're right. Well, it's hard to describe. Just like Brother Jenkins said, it's hard. I was just delighted. I mean, we left early that morning and went up to the mall, and we were just there, and it just felt good. I mean, no pressure. It's just the best feeling that one can have this side of heaven. I mean, it was just that meaningful to me. You know, when you grow up black in America, black male and a black man, you hear so many negatives thrown our way. And if we're weak-minded, we'll buy some of that. I hadn't bought a hell of a lot, much of it, but I was vindicated that day in the fact that we are positive as an individual. They are wrong, and we can do and be what we need to do. We can be brotherly. We don't have to be cursing one another out or acting crazy or trying to take something that doesn't belong to us. That's not our natural state. Our natural state is the way we were on that morning, on that day, standing peacefully, acting brotherly, listening to the messages that came, whether it's Jesse Jackson or and finally the big message by the minister. We can do that, and we can leave as men proudly. Heck with what they say. We know what we can do, and we know who we are. Atonement to me is for an individual to repent, if you will, for not having made the grade. In other words, we have fallen short, as everyone has, and black men in America, for various reasons, have fallen short. Some could say history played us a bad hand of cards initially. So we've had a real struggle in America as black men, really. But to atone to our families, to our community, and to ourselves, I guess, and the country at large, that we really haven't been what we're capable of being. So we atone, we ask to be forgiven, and we agree that when we return home, we'll try to be better men. Not necessarily perfect, but we'll certainly try to be better men, because we believe our communities depend upon us, and we're going to do it for ourselves and for our people. My commitment to black youth today is to every chance I get, try and encourage them. If I can encourage a black youth, I'll do that. There's various ways to do it. Following the march, I've been known to, NACP has something called Freedom Fund Dinner every year. And following that march, I was led to sponsor some youth to that dinner. And I did that. And one was a young fellow who's now the commissioner at the county level, Tommy Calvert. I sponsored him a couple of times to that dinner because I saw something in him. But I've done other things. I've sponsored contests down through the years, and I have a write-up to reflect that. I gave students in the school an opportunity to write about the Million Man March when the time came, some years ago. And the student who put together the best essay, I think I'd give them $100. Yeah, good question. I wish I could speak to it in a way that the question deserves, really. But I would say we can treat any black man that we see, simply treat him brotherly, by example, if you will. In other words, we can't allow classism to sneak its way into our dealing one with the other. I think treating a brother correctly, let's be courteous, and I've tried to do it myself. Let's start speaking to the man. You see black men, I use HEB in various places. Speak to the man, don't just pass him up, and I find that they are delighted. Even if he's in front of you at the grocery place or behind, and you look, at least I look and see he doesn't have very much, pick it up, pay for it, send a message to him. So I think that sort of thing can be helpful to encourage the black men to perhaps hold on and do better. I maybe sometime not lecture per se, but talk to them. just led by, the Spirit, if you will, to do what we can. But I think there's many of us, those of us in the room, are considered examples of sorts. And since we're perceived that way, we need to act in a way with that in mind, that we are impacting people, and we can do that negatively or positively. So let's do it in a positive way. But the main thing is send them home understanding that from one black man to another, you okay, it's going to be all right. And if anything I can do to lessen the pain, just a tad, in the meantime, I'll do that, because I believe tomorrow can be better. And I want them to believe the same.
My name is Daniel W. Martin III. At the time, I chose to attend the march only because of the fact that it was a time for us brothers to get together and show unity and become part as one. But the trip itself was self-gratifying to myself, going through some things at the time that the march came on, to be around positive attitudes and with the group of men that attended. It was just something overwhelming to see so many brothers together. No violence, no cussing, no drinking, just fellowship together, talking positive things, impacting on our family, our lives, our communities, but I enjoyed just being there. At first it was sort of scary. I was waiting for something to break up, but nothing ever did. Everybody had a positive attitude that day. You saw brothers from all over the country there together, fellowshipping, talking, hugging, showing love, being respectful to each other. There was just no need to get worried, because you just think when you see a bunch of brothers together, something's gonna happen bad. But in this case, it was all about love and trying to get together on one accord. I think the most important thing I remember over all the event of the march was just that I stood there all day, didn't move, didn't have to walk away from anything. It just had your attention from the time it started to the time it ended. Everything was just going just perfectly. I stood there with Reverend John Sanders, and I looked at him and said, "Man, can you believe we've been standing here for 8 hours and we haven't moved?" But I just remember the speakers, the fellowship, and just being a part of the group. I think the first thing would be just the program itself, the speakers, the different speakers, the singing, the acknowledgement of different people that were there, seeing those persons in eye to eye, not on TV, but just being in the mix with all these people. And third was the speech from Farrakhan. You would think it would have been something of a radical movement or something negative, but it was a positive move from the Reverend Farrakhan to speak to us that day. I needed to be around some brothers that had some positive attitude and some positive statements to be made. My advice would be, 1, stay true to yourself. 2, get involved. Don't sit on the sidelines and say, "Hey, that's not for me," because it is for you. I think that we just sit back sometimes and we think that, "Oh, that's not going to work for me. It's not going to work for my family." But we've got to come together, especially in these times. 25 years later, it's like we're going backwards in time. The violence in the cities, we're going back 25 years. We should have been progressing forward 25 years. But now today, it's like we're in the same boat we were in 25, 30 years ago or 40 years ago. But I think the positive thing to say to somebody is, hey, we've got to come together. We can't keep hating each other. We can't keep trying to step on each other's toes. We've got to come together. I think if we had a million-man march every year instead of periodically, I think that we'd be a stronger community now. What everybody else is saying, Black lives do matter. Black lives matter. We're no different. The color of our skin's the only thing, but in our hearts, we're still Americans. We paved the way for some others. We've done our jobs. We hold jobs. We own homes. We're respected in our community. So why can't you not get along with us? Why does it have to be a black person that seems to suffer more than anybody else in this world? that I'm black. And I stay true to myself. And I stay true to my family. And I stay true to my church, my community. And I just think if we can help somebody, we got to stop stepping on each other. We got to stop talking about each other. We got to stay together as a community, as a person of color. There's still work to be done. The work is not over. But I would pertain to my children in the future. Hey, be true to yourself. Know who you are. Don't let anybody take anything away from you. Know that you can do anything that anybody else can do in this life. Just stay true to yourself and be who you are as a black American.
When we got to San Antonio International Airport, we had a farewell party there assembled. We gathered together, held hands, and I think at the time, Minister Jennings did the prayer for us before we got ready to board the plane. Man, it was a great experience. When we got to Washington, D.C., we had buses waiting at the airport for us. We got to the hotel, and it was just amazing because we had brothers from all over the country. Some didn't have rooms per se, and I can witness this because Cornelius Cox gave up his room to give to some brothers out of Connecticut where they would have a place to stay. And matter of fact, Cornelius Cox stayed in the room with myself, and Brother Harold gave up his room, so the three of us lodged together. And that was the beginning of seeing what our love for one another was. No matter where you came from, we were family. The next day, gathering at the morning of the march, it's 3:30 in the morning, and the mall is already gathering with people. And I'm gonna bag up 1 second before I go there, because the night when we got there, we had to meet at the hotel the ministers was staying in, and Jesse Jackson and some others, we hadn't seen them in 9 months, but they were there that night. One of the conversations that came about is, Brother Minister, how many minutes could I speak? This is Jesse asking the minister that question. Now, me, myself, and others probably would have said, man, you ain't been nowhere around in 9 months, and you show up the night before, and now you want to speak because you can see the success before you. The minister tells him, Jesse, I can't put a time limit on you, but you are more than welcome to speak the next morning. There was another question asked by Reverend Laurie. Brother Minister, are you going to ask every brother on the mall to join the Nation of Islam? Once again, Brother Greg thinking he has a right to ask anybody that came to join the Nation of Islam because he put in 99% or 100% of the work. He said, Reverend Laurie, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to ask every brother to go back and join on to whatever organization he left, go back to church if he hadn't been there in the last 20 years, go back and join on. So I'm just giving you an insight of the man that we have in front of us, because I don't know no other Negro leader that would humble himself to do 100% of the work and give everybody else all the credit when there was no credit due. And the next morning we were blessed to see everybody take the stage. We had Maya Angelou, we had Sister Betty Shabazz, we had Sister Dorothy Height. All these are women great in their time, in our time of presence, that they spoke humbly, and the gathering was magnificent. Jesse Jackson took the stage, and I thought Jesse talked for about 45 minutes. And it was fine. But when the minister, they announced one time, I believe, during the process, there were approximately 1.2 million people on the mall, and we had stopped traffic. And during that period of time, by about 2:30, when the minister took the stage, they announced there's nearly 2 million brothers on the mall. I personally worked, because we fall in regions, I worked up under the Southwest region. We all had responsibilities on the mall. We were at the Washington Monument, down to the Jefferson Memorial. Most of the pictures you will see is only up to the Washington Monument, but they never show you the picture behind the Washington Monument down to the Memorial, where the pool, and we did it in reverse, meaning that the 63 March was held from the Jefferson Memorial back to the Washington Monument, and that's what most people are used to seeing from the 63 March. It was just done in reverse. So during this process, I think one of the things that I took from the event was you had nearly 2 million black men on the mall, and we didn't hear one curse word. We did not hear, brother, you on my foot. We standing shoulder to shoulder. Now it's almost 8 hours into the day. Nobody could even bear witness that there was any type of disturbance that day. Everything seemed like it stopped, and we all seized the moment of this great moment in time, per se. I think that also what we witnessed that day, the minister showed us something that was done, that money is not your and my problem. It is the disunification of money, because within less than 5 seconds, he asked every brother just to hold up $1. And that showed the world that if we can raise $2 million in less than 5 seconds, money is not our problem. And what it also showed, that we could not get to the money because we did not know where the line started or where it ended at on every row where brothers were standing. One thing the minister did, and where CNN did a disservice all the way through this process, the minister hired 2 different accounting firms to account for every dollar that was collected and those who donated. I'm just going to share a couple names. You had Michael Jackson wrote a check for $200,000. The minister asked him to come to the march to sing Man in the Mirror. Michael said, no, I'm not going to come because I want that day to be solely about you and the brothers that are gathered on the lawn and not about me. So he sent his money instead. Don King did the same thing. O.J. Simpson was supposed to be there, but he didn't show up. Johnny Cochran donated money. You can go online still to this day to www.noi.org and find out about the 1995 Million Man March and see the 2 different auditors that did the report. But CNN never brought the minister back to do this particular deed, to show the American people that he didn't steal any money. The money was accounted for. And I believe in our history and time, that would be the only march that you will ever see a audit done by 2 different entities that are still on file to this day. We also had a survey team. 2 different survey teams did a survey. The numbers came out that 85% of all brothers that attended the march were Christians. 12% were Muslim, and 3% didn't give a damn if Jesus rose or didn't rise. But the second auditor had the same numbers, 85% Christian, 12% Muslim, 3% didn't believe in any of the above. So all these things that were done that some of us might not had an opportunity to know, or there was no follow-up to it, you can visit www.noi.org, and all this, what I'm saying, is online still to this day. I think that during this period of time as well, those who did not stand or attend the Million Man March for whatever reason, nobody's mad at you. Nobody was ever mad at you. I think you were just on the opposite side of history. Because on that day, we even had the Capitol Police. When we departed from the mall, it was as clean as though we had never been there before. They acknowledged that. There was not one piece of crime committed, murder, stealing, or any of the above in Washington, D.C. on October the 16th, 1995. So out of all of this, and looking back 25 years later, some of the things that the minister talked about 25 years ago is still happening today, because some of us did not come back, but a lot of us did do things personally that was asked of us and in the pledge that we made. Some of us came back and adopted our nieces, our nephews, or children that needed to be adopted. Voter registration went up. We went back and joined on the organizations that we had maybe departed from. We went back and joined on. I think our marriages even got better, or you even committed to one woman and you made that vow to make that better. So a lot of things that personally we could go down a list and check off that from that day and 25 years later, we are still living by those rules, that pledge, And you can see that anything this man has mentioned in the last 65 years is came to true fact, that after 25 years, we're still falling up under police brutality. We're still fighting. We're still fighting for equal opportunity and pay. We're still fighting for discrimination being imposed upon us. We're still fighting. I think that if we applied some of the things that the minister has said and look at this man for who he is, I think, and make a good judgment for ourselves, we would have a better idea of the man that's in presence in front of you and I, and we would get to know him better. I think one thing that we need to do is stop allowing others to dictate who our friends should be and pick our friends for us, because I believe we got a true friend in the Most Honorable Louis Farrakhan.
This is John H. Sanders. The reason I attended the Million Man March, well, of course it would be in my DNA to do so. It was during a time of my height of my activist career, or my activist involvement, participation. And so the Million Man March, along with everything else that we were addressing at the time, police brutality, discrimination in housing, environmental racism, it fit right in to come together even as black men, since we were called as the leaders of our community to come together. And of course, we forged a national identity that we were, not as the profiles and the stereotypical scenarios were about black men in this country, that we could not come together in mass, we could not demonstrate or be peaceful or come together and leave the same way that we came, in harmony and in peace. And I think we showed this country and the world that was tuning in on that day, that the black men in America were attuned to what was going on, and that we could come together and address the issues that were besetting our communities. It continued to inspire me that the involvement that I had already been in was purposeful, meaningful, and that it was a part of my life's work, and that it would go on, and that I would be inspired by other brothers, older and younger, who came out, fathers who brought their sons, and even some who brought their daughters to this, to experience it. And now you see that in this new movement of young people who are coming in, and the next two generations who are coming up behind us, who are being activists and taking on that mantle. The baton has been passed to them, and they're doing yeoman's work. Very proud of them. Well, the physical demand, because we were one of the first to get to the mall, and we were in the front. And so we didn't realize that we were going to be landlocked, because when we turned around, we couldn't move. So there was nowhere to go. So we were in one position for about 6.5 to 7 hours. But it was amazing that we didn't have any need. If we needed to go to a facility, we couldn't get there, because we were airtight. It was like sardines in a can. And we didn't realize that until maybe an hour later, after we got there, that we weren't going to be able to move. When we turned around and looked at the site behind us, it was amazing. And all we could do was squat down every now and then, or kneel down when our knees start aching, and lean on one another. We did that a lot, but the spirit of it just endured. That time went by. It wasn't painful. It was the spirit of it. We were uplifted and inspired, and it just was a beautiful experience. Well, it made every man, first of all of us, look into ourselves. It was about self-examination. The first thing, if you're going to be atoned, you have to look into yourself. What am I being atoned? What am I want to atone for? And then what do we want to atone for? That's each man has to determine that on his own. As we said, to be a better father, to be more responsible in my community, to be a better churchman, or a better Muslim, to be whatever faith one had subscribed to, or to look at one's shortcomings and say, where in my weakness I'm going to pick up and try to be better. And then I'm going to look around and see how I can be better at being my brother's keeper, And I think that's what we came away from. And those of us who had already been involved, we just came back and as you can see, just continued to do what we were already doing. Oh my goodness. Mine was, and I said after so many years, because some of us who were there, I know, I don't call it names, we will remember that when we were young and being as we were labeled radical, we didn't have much support or mentoring. We had to forge ahead on our own simply because of our agenda. So I always committed and said, no matter what, well, the next generation, whoever comes up behind me, whatever guidance, mentoring, assistance, if they need it, because a lot of people, don't appreciate unsolicited advice. But if they want it, I would be here to help them and be there to stand with them, as we did have elders and seniors when we come who stood with us and who supported us and undergirded them, and I'm committed to undergird this movement that's going on right now. Get it together as we are starting to come to this new age, the new awakening. I think we've seen the underbelly of America, and we've called our younger people now to be more invested in their history. They've learned about things they never knew before. When this president went to Tulsa, he didn't know what he was doing. He thought he was doing something, going to a very friendly place. What he did was go to a place where history was for Black America. And there were a number of our young people who never heard of Tulsa, never heard of Greenwood, never knew what happened in South and North Carolina, never knew the real systemic history of racism in this country, Jim Crow, those 100 years after slavery. And I think that new reinvestment in our history just inspired them. And I think America wasn't ready for this millennial and this next generation, because they're going to go even further than we are. They're more organized. They have the technology now. And we've had a number of them. They've gone to war. Many of them have been veterans. And they've come back like this new movement you have. These young people are now going out and got themselves legally armed. If you want to change the gun laws, let all Black folks who are eligible to go out to get firearms start buying firearms. The gun laws are going to be changed. But you can see this new generation is more inspired. America, we are here. We've been here. We've saved America. That's right. We've been the conscience of America. We've demanded that America live up to what they put down on that form, on that paper called the Constitution, that they never thought that we would make them live up to. But we're going to make America live up to its promise, and we're going to honor our elders, the generation of blood that has been shed in the streets, in the fields, and that have sang and prayed for this day. And we have to take this baton and we have to move it forward with this new generation. We are America. When you talk about American history, they try to put it in 1 month. Black history is American history. It should be taught year round. And I appreciate what is going on, because young people are discovering things they never knew. The contributions of many young Black people, and especially our Black women, who are now being celebrated. And many of them, I remember. We talk about, they mentioned me, Ella Baker, but Fannie Lou Hamer, they mentioned Fannie Lou Hamer, but people like Ruby Sales and Annie Pearl Avery. Those are also some women and civil rights workers down in Mississippi and Alabama who risked their lives, sharecroppers, to make this dream come true. So we have nothing else to do but fulfill our responsibility to our generation and pass this baton on to the next
one. My name is Morris Stribling, and the reason I went to the Million Man March was because it was, as I understood it then, an opportunity for African American men to come together and to support our families and to support our people. Even if you were a man who had made mistakes, if you had been to prison, or if you hadn't been taking care of your family, this was an opportunity to turn all of that around and support African Americans in general. It was a different feeling altogether, something that I had never experienced before. When we got to the mall and we were surrounded by thousands upon thousands of men, it gave me a great feeling as an African American man to be amongst men who wanted to do something for their people. Atonement to me means that no matter what bad things that have happened to you in your life, no matter what mistakes you have made, this was an opportunity to turn that around. So no matter, what issues you had as an African American man, even with the fact that we have systemic racism, we would take all the positive things that we have to offer as a man and go forward with that. That's what atonement means to me. I remember when we left the hotel that morning, the ones that came with our group from San Antonio, we got completely separated. And so I found myself in the midst of men that I had never met before. And with that group of guys, we started to talk. And I heard men say that they had just been released from prison, or they had never taken care of their families and kids. They had never done anything positive, but this was an opportunity for them to do that. So I was impressed by the fact that African American men were able to and willing to admit what their shortcomings were, and that this event would be a turnaround in their life. Yeah, I would say so. As a matter of fact, I don't think things have changed much at all. I was kind of fooled when Barack Obama was elected president. I remember that day in 2008, I sat on my couch and I cried when they announced that Barack Obama was the first African American president. And I thought America had changed, but America hadn't changed. There is a subset of population that still believes that black lives do not matter. And so that made a lasting impression on me. And when you look back 25 years ago, now there are some positive things. I remember when we came back as a group, we didn't just come back and separate. We decided that we would do something to help our community. One of the things that I was tasked with was economic development. And that's how I started the Black Business Expo. It was actually because I had attended the Million Man March. And the expo went on for 12 years. It got to a point where it was large enough to be at the downtown convention center. And I think, I'm not absolutely sure, but about 20 African Americans started a business based on what they saw and the information that they got from the Black Business Expo. And so I think that's probably the proudest thing that I can think of in relationship to going to the Million Man March. I would tell them, number one, be proud of who you are. Don't let the part of America that despises you as an African American man lead you to believe that you are less than what you are. The t-shirt that I have on now represents the 20th anniversary of the Million Man March. When I went in 1995, I went alone. And that was really what Minister Farrakhan had asked us to do. Don't bring your wives, don't bring your girlfriends. Come alone as men so we can solve the problems particular to African American men. And the 20th anniversary, I took both of my sons because I wanted them to understand what the Million Man March meant, and I wanted it to have an impact on their lives too. So they weren't able to go with me in 95, but I wanted to take them 20 years later in 2015 just so they can understand what the impact of the Million Man March was. America, I would tell America to live up to its hopes and dreams. If America says that all men are created equal under the law, then we should do that. And I would also tell a message to white America. Stop teaching your kids to be racist. It's a psychological fact that they learned it at the dinner table starting at the age of 3. We need to start telling our kids about love and acceptance, no matter what the color of a person's skin is. So the message is, America, message to America is to live up to what you say you are. If you're a country of freedom, if you're a country of democracy, then live up to that and not do the opposite. Well, I've had a lot of conversations with them, particularly my oldest son and my youngest son, because I know that when they get out into the real world, they're going to be faced with some very difficult situations. And I felt like I had to have those conversations because their lives are different than mine. I grew up in a predominantly black neighborhood, and we understood what the struggle was. But sometimes our children are a little bit divorced from that, especially when they live in a predominantly white neighborhood and they get fooled into thinking that they're accepted. But when they find out that they're not, they're extremely disappointed, and it can have a detrimental psychological effect on their sense of self-esteem. And so the discussions I have with them is to help them to understand that when people have a negative viewpoint of you, just because you're black, that has nothing to do with who you really are. And sometimes that's a tough discussion. I remember having discussions with my oldest son when he was in grammar school. He didn't understand the concern I had about how white America viewed him because it wasn't his experience. He experienced it later, and later on as he grew up, he would tell me, Dad, now I remember what you were telling me. And I knew at the time it was just going to take a little bit for him to either experience it and then to find out for himself. But what I wanted to do was plant the seed so that when it did occur, the experience wouldn't be so painful. Well, I think as I recall leading up to going to the Million Man March, at first I didn't know what it was all about. I knew that some of the black pastors in San Antonio thought it was not a good idea. As a matter of fact, they told us, the black Muslims are just trying to recruit you. I didn't find that to be true. And I told my pastor that when we went to meetings, there was no indication that they wanted us to be recruited to be black Muslims. They simply wanted us to come together as African American men. And what that led me to believe is that a lot of times when black people try to help black people, there's still this wall. And I think one of the things that we need to get over is we got to help each other. And we've got to believe in one another. And we've got to get away from the negative influences that America has placed on us and understand that there is power in us being unified. And I also think that when white America is so deathly afraid of black people, when you think about it, all of the things that have happened to us, and we're still here, there is strength in us. Even despite the fact that we have some African Americans who believe otherwise, we're still here. Most people would have been destroyed, but they cannot destroy African Americans because there is an inherent strength in us. And I'll say something else that may be controversial. We are not inferior. As a matter of fact, in some respects, we're superior as a people.
My name is Charles Wilson. I guess better known as Squirrel. That's what most of my close friends call me. I'm a retired member of the San Antonio Fire Department, member of the International Association of Black Professional Firefighters, and I'm here to talk about the Million Man March. Myself and a couple of friends, we made the journey up there by car, and basically we drove, I guess, somewhere around 19 or 20 hours straight to get up there. We left during the day, drove all day, all night, and got there the next evening. It was really a beautiful trip. As we traveled along, I did most of the driving at night, and going down the road at night, we pulled over at rest areas, bathrooms or so where we had to go, and it was just like driving at daytime. There was so many cars on the road, and everybody that was there was on their way up to the Million Man March. So it was more like I guess I would say a kind of a party alike or so, 'cause we all talked to each other. Everybody was getting along and telling everybody where they were going, and we just take care a little bit of that, take a break, and then we get back in and take off. But this was all night long and all the day when we were going. Once we got pretty much out of Texas, that's when we started hitting everybody going. And they were driving that night because the march was going to be, I guess, we left a day early because we was, the firefighters, the International Association of Black Professional Firefighters had contacted the different chapters that was part of it and let us know that they needed. At first they told us that we were going to do first aid up there. I was a paramedic here in the fire department, so I was ready to go up there. Moses, and then we had a buddy, Carlos, went with us there just to help drive up there. And so we got up there, we stayed at a hotel over in Maryland where it was set up for the International. And we got up there that evening, checked in. Now, most of the people, I guess, that came up there was out of Detroit. Detroit brought at least one busload of firefighters down there, what they were going to do. But once we got there, we found out that Black Nurses Organization and Black Doctors Organizations on that East Coast had heard about it and volunteered, but they hadn't told, I guess, the organizers of it. So since they were going to do that, a bunch of us they gave us the job of being, well, it's with the radios. I had a radio and I was communications. And I was stationed up at Washington Monument. And I was taken care of from the Washington Monument on back to the Lincoln Memorial. And so they had trailers in between there. If you had a problem, you could send people there, or you could escort them there. You call and if it was something bad, you call and have them come out. But that's the way I spent most of my day there. Now, I've seen a lot of stuff. It was one thing that was funny there, because up at the Washington Monument, it wasn't the march, the people didn't extend all the way back to the Washington Monument, because it came from the Capitol. I don't know how many people that's familiar with that area. That mall between the Lincoln and the Capitol is a long way. And so up here at the Washington Monument, it's set up high, and they had all these TV cameras up there. Some of them looked like they're about 50 feet high that was filming everything and all. And at one time they had, I guess just to cause trouble, they had a bunch of it was white folk that was up there, and they had signs that they were carrying around, like, Jesse Jackson's a fag, or Martin Luther King was a crook, or this and that, just stuff to agitate people. But it was so well organized and thing, people didn't even bother with them. They just, let them march around and just kept on doing what we were doing. Now, I was really surprised how well it was. The Muslims, they did a heck of a job for it, security and doing it, because they had the security. And they had all the vendors over there around that area, around that Washington Monument. And if you walk around, people was up in trees looking out. They couldn't stand that long. I guess they just climbed trees and could see out and was looking. And it was just something unbelievable, because I said, right before it was all over with, because I couldn't really see from where I was located at, I walked down the mall towards where all the people was. And I took pictures, but I don't know what I did with my pictures. It was so long ago, and I've moved from one house to the other, and half of stuff with a short notice, I know I couldn't find it because I can't find stuff I put up now. So it's one of those things, but it was just to look out and see that many black folk and all sitting there peaceful. They were all just crammed in there. Because you could only walk so far because they were all the way across and you couldn't get around to go on up to where the Capitol was and all where the speakers were. But it was just beautiful. I say I probably had a few tears because I couldn't hold them back just looking at the sight. It was just something to see that, it was just something that if you were there and looked at it, it was going to affect you. You were going to show some type of emotion because it was a beautiful sight. Well, young African Americans today, we got to quit fighting each other and come together. That's the biggest thing, because that was one of the reasons my wife was against me going up there, because they thought it was going to be a bunch of shootings and something might happen to me or what. But I just thought I had to go and be there, so I went. But all the gangs that was up there, like I say, everything was peaceful. So if we could do that just one day and just cut this stuff out and come together and work for, just get together and just help each other. I say I know a lot of them. I've worked on the ambulance and I've listened to all kind of stories, why they did things or whatever, but most of it on the ambulance back then didn't make sense, and we tried to talk to them. But like I always say, we are what we see, and that's why when me and Moses and all, we worked together, and we used to make runs in the Wheelie and the East Terrace and all, and we didn't have to transport. We stayed there and talked to the kids, because we used to say, if you don't see a fireman or you don't see a police officer or you don't see somebody doing good, then you don't know it exists. It don't exist to you. The only thing that exists is whoever's leading the gang over there. And so that my whole purpose is to be the leader of that gang. So how to do that, I gotta go out and rob, steal, or shoot, or whatever to become that. So we need to have them see more positive things, because like I say, if you don't see it, it's not happening. And I don't know how we lost these generations like we did, but we just gotta cut out what we're doing, and it's a better way to do it. And for us to overcome like we're trying to do now, we gotta put an end to all this different little foolishness and come together and work together and see if we can get the people registered, vote, get who we need in these places, and make them accountable to what we need. Like they said, it's been 400 years, and things still are going on the same. Instead of them lynching us like they used to, they shooting us. So you just found a different way of doing things.
I got one last story about the Million Man March. President Clinton came back into town after his departure because of the 2 million black men showing up in Washington, D.C. The Pope came also into town, and they wanted to talk to the minister and meet with him. So they decided to take a rowboat out in the middle of the Potomac River. As they were going out, the president asked questions. Farrakhan, what are your plans? The Pope asked questions, the minister asked the questions. All of a sudden, the boat sprung a leak. The president hits the button on his watch, man, they send in the helicopter to retrieve him. The Pope sends a signal, here comes a speedboat. They get the Pope out the boat, he turns back and says, Farrakhan, what are you gonna do now? All of a sudden, the minister jumped out the boat and he walked on water, Brother Tony. Next day in the Washington Post, it said Farrakhan couldn't swim.